What did Disney receive in return for spending almost $250 million to rename Snow White? Family Guy made the entire endeavor into a farce. The most outrageous aspect of the film, the company, the casting, and Disney's entire reboot era was that they didn't even need to name Rachel Zegler for everyone to know exactly who they were discussing. The message was harsh and obvious. This wasn't just a passing joke. It was a full-on assault that struck hard because audiences are already tired of forced remakes and moral lectures passed off as entertainment. And in one crucial Family Guy scene, Rachel Zegler is unintentionally becoming the face of all that annoyance. Family Guy bluntly declares that Disney's empire is collapsing and that their obsession with reimagining classics is the main culprit as Peter Griffin strolls through Disneyland, looking perplexed, while a roller coaster bearing the name Disney stock plummets downward behind him. It gets worse. Peter comments, "Wow, that girl is hot." While watching TV, his companion instantly corrects him, saying it's a boy.
"Wow, that girl's hot.
That's a guy.
That other guy's handsome.
That's a girl.
That cat is cute.
That's a dog."
What is everything?
This keeps happening until Peter eventually snaps and yells, "What is everything?" It's humorous and chaotic, but it also takes aim at the identity politics that many believe are controlling Hollywood's narrative style. The question, "What is everything?" has even turned into a meme, perfectly encapsulating the feelings that many viewers get when seeing contemporary reboots. Family Guy took that feeling and turned it into a precisely targeted punchline. They didn't hold back because they didn't need to. That's the luxury of a show that builds its reputation on being offensive. But for Disney, this wasn't just another roast. It was a wake-up call they couldn't ignore. Everything is being changed, renamed, redefined, and audiences are expected to accept it without question. Family Guy wasn't even the first animated series to follow Disney's new course, but South Park outperformed them and didn't merely make fun of Snow White. They took down the entire system that supported it. Kennedy, Kathleen, the repurposed casting formulas, and what they dubbed the "put a chick in it and make her gay" playbook were decisions made in the Disney boardroom. Rachel Zegler was already in the crosshairs because, in the event that Family Guy fired shots, South Park dropped a nuclear bomb. Instead of merely making fun of Disney, South Park reverse-engineered the formula and made fun of it line by line in their Pandaverse special, which introduced a character that was obviously intended to be Kathleen Kennedy. The episode plays like a fever dream in which Cartman is tormented by a multiverse in which every classic character has been replaced with a self-righteous corporate-approved version, while the entire thing is obviously satire. The real Disney executive behind the majority of the company's recent reboots gave her a mystical object called the Pander Stone and made it her mission to insert diverse women into every franchise, whether it made narrative sense or not. The viral moment occurred when South Park's portrayal of Kennedy threw her hands in the air and said, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." The message was too personal for Disney to dismiss. That one phrase quickly became a catchphrase for how many fans feel that Disney's most recent productions are forced to be repetitive and unoriginal. But the criticism wasn't limited to animation. The controversy has gone so far that the studio that produced some of the most cherished films is now being pulled by animation studio commentators, YouTube critics, and even its own original creators. George Lucas, the man behind Star Wars, was caught in a viral video criticizing Kennedy directly in front of her face during a panel. The audience laughed, but it was an awkward laugh that felt a little too real. While Snow White has yet to recover from the reaction, Rachel Zegler Disney is already eyeing its next billion-dollar gamble, a live-action remake of Tangled, and reportedly Rachel Zegler is attached to that project too, which is not going over well online. Tangled is set to become the most expensive Disney remake ever. We're talking over $500 million zero Allen with marketing, but after losing nearly $200 million zero on Snow White, there's panic setting in. Behind the scenes, even loyal Disney fans are asking the obvious question: why would they risk this much again, especially with someone the internet already has pitchforks out for? The backlash against Tangled is happening before filming even begins, and it's not because Rachel Zegler lacks talent, it's because audiences feel like they're being sold a brand, not a story. When you throw $500 million behind that brand, the expectation isn't just for a good movie, it's for something bulletproof. Something people want to root for right now. That's nowhere near where the energy is heading. And speaking of bad energy, that takes us straight to the moment when Rachel walked into an empty theater, posted a TikTok, and accidentally reminded everyone just how badly Snow White actually bombed. Normally an actress visiting a theater wouldn't make headlines, but this wasn't just any screening, this was her own movie. When the chairs were nearly empty for her own promotional event, she shared a brief Instagram story, carrying a bouquet of flowers as she entered the theater as if it were a red carpet premiere. Yet there were only a few dispersed spectators behind her. What was supposed to be a cute viral moment quickly turned into a meme, and within hours, people joked that she had brought flowers to a funeral. Some called it the most lonely premiere in Disney history, and while it's easy to laugh at the awkwardness, it symbolized something deeper. The disconnect between the film and its intended audience, between Rachel and the fans who should have been there, was a major contributing factor. Since Snow White has always been described in the original story as having skin as white as snow, her casting was controversial from the start. When Disney chose a Latina actress for the role, the internet was ablaze with criticism, with some arguing that if you're going to remake a classic, at least stick to the character's core characteristics. Rachel responded to the criticism with a TikTok, highlighting the significance of modern representation, but the issue wasn't just the casting. It was the way everything was handled afterward. Rachel went beyond simply defending her role to start attacking the original movie, calling it strange and antiquated and even implying that the prince was fundamentally troublesome. This is where many fans drew the line. If you're playing an iconic role, at least respect the source material and at least act as though you appreciate what came before you. However, the criticism didn't end there. It also became political. During the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, Rachel Zegler was one of several Hollywood celebrities to publicly support Palestine. She even signed a letter calling for a ceasefire, which by itself wouldn't have caused chaos. But her co-star Gal Gadot is renowned for being pro-Israel. Suddenly, a fictional fairy tale film turned into a real-life political battleground when Lebanon officially banned the film. Not because of Rachel, but because of Gal Gadot, according to distributors GDAU, which has long been on a boycott list in Lebanon, meaning that any film starring her is prevented from being released there, just when it seemed like the controversy couldn't get any more complicated. An old video of Rachel reappeared. She apologized for her contentious remarks on social media that needed to be cleaned up, but as we all know, the internet never forgets and simply waits for the ideal opportunity to bring them up again. No matter how beautiful the images were or how many times Disney attempted to change the plot, the damage was already done, and the final blow was the dismal box office results. Rachel Zegler was more popular for drama than for her acting skills. Even Disney insiders were forced to acknowledge that Snow White, which had a huge budget of $240 million to $270 million, barely made $184 million worldwide. However, behind closed doors, producer Mark Platt's son Jonah Platt didn't hold back and said what most executives were thinking but wouldn't say publicly, which made things worse. Her interviews, social media accounts, and public demeanor in general, that's what destroyed the atmosphere and contributed to the film's demise. Now, the question isn't whether Snow White failed, that is a known fact, but rather what Disney intends to do next, because animated series are ruthlessly mocking them, fans are fleeing, and their most costly remake hasn't even begun production yet. Even Disney's most ardent supporters are beginning to turn a blind eye, but the roasts keep coming, and one of the darkest ones may have gone unnoticed right out of Family Guy once more in the show's Quagmire's Dad episode, where a transgender character named Ida was introduced. While the show's intention may have been progressive for its time, its execution was anything but the most infamous moment. After discovering that he had slept with Ida, Brian the dog started throwing up a lot. Despite the online outcry over the scene, Family Guy never backs down. They have never professed to be fair, but they have always been fearless. If they are already criticizing Disney's casting decisions, identity politics, and box office failures, there's no reason to believe they're done. This leads us to the one cartoon empire that hasn't fully joined the fray yet, but may do so in the future. The Simpsons. For more than 30 years, The Simpsons have deftly parroted politics, media, and pop culture, and recently they have been moving closer to attacking their Disney overlords. Keep in mind that Disney now owns them, but that business arrangement hasn't stopped The Simpsons from making bolder jokes about their parent company, which they have already roasted. Marvel exhaustion. It appears that Snow White may soon be directly in their crosshairs because to Star Wars overabundance and the never-ending stream of remakes. Here are some reasons why it could pose a significant issue for Disney. Even if The Simpsons air an episode ridiculing the Tangled remake, they still have a lot of cultural credibility. When even your own properties are turning against you, it's no longer about haters or trolls. Rachel Zegler or Disney's obsession with rewriting its past will resonate deeply because viewers will recognize the truth in it, not because it's edgy. The moment The Simpsons fully joins the pylon, it will signal something much worse. Disney has lost control of the narrative. It has to do with validity. Disney used to stand for timeless storytelling characters that people could believe in, films that families could escape into together. But now they're selling reboots wrapped in socio-political messaging, and even their most ardent fans are beginning to tune out. The question isn't whether another roast is coming, it's who delivers the next one. Family. This controversy was never about Rachel Zegler alone, one disappointing film, or even the online critics. At its core, it's about trust. Guy did it, and South Park destroyed it. If things don't improve soon, the next episode of The Simpsons won't simply be humorous. It will mark the end of a Disney period that many people are prepared to abandon. What makes this situation especially risky for Disney is that the criticism is coming from all directions. Snow White's rebranding was initially criticized by conservative pundits, but now liberal comedians are joining in as well. It's no longer a partisan issue. Rather, it's a joke that people of all political stripes use. The saddest part may be what this means for Rachel Zegler herself, a young actress with genuine talent who has unintentionally become the poster child for corporate Hollywood's identity obsession. Her performance in West Side Story showed real promise, but now she's being defined by controversy instead of craft, and every interview becomes a minefield. When you're being roasted by both South Park and late-night talk shows, you know you've hit a cultural nerve. Every social media post is analyzed, and with Tangled approaching, there's no escaping the limelight. According to reports, Disney executives are frantically working behind the scenes. There have been internal memoranda about changing direction and going back to the fundamentals of narrative. Some industry insiders believe that this moment represents a larger cultural shift. There has even been discussion about possibly recasting Tangled or delaying production until the heat dies down. But the harm to public perception cannot be repaired with a press release or a strategic pivot. Trust must be rebuilt over time. The pendulum that abruptly swung in the direction of identity. It seems that focused storytelling is returning to more conventional narratives. While simple crowd pleasers continue to do well at the box office, studios that centered their whole business model around political messaging are seeing a decline in their earnings. Audiences don't reject diversity. Rather, they reject being preached to after paying for amusement. The irony is that Walt Disney, who is renowned for saying, "I don't make movies for critics, I make them for people," fully understood this idea. That idea created an empire, but as Disney deals with this existential crisis, other studios are intently observing how it is being dismantled piece by piece. Paramount and Warner Brothers are also taking notice, modifying their approaches, and attempting to steer clear of the same issues. Nobody wants their major assets to be made into jokes on animated sitcoms, and nobody wants to be the next cautionary story. Finally, if Family Guy, South Park, and possibly The Simpsons are any indication, the roasts aren't going to stop. They're just getting started. Will Disney learn from Snow White's failure before Tangled experiences the same fate? Or will they double down and dismiss the criticism as hate and watch another $500 million disappear?